What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about NIO. I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause some volatility in the stock price, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So starting off with macro data, there really isn't all that much coming out this upcoming week. We have some inflation data on Friday evening, but of course that will be rolled over into the following week. So not really much as far as that. There isn't any meetings planned for this week. Last one did occur on the 30th, so a couple days ago, on which there was no mention of rate cuts. So I think in general, the market and Chinese stocks were really looking forward to some sort of either stimulus package or rate cuts or something along those lines, but there wasn't really anything. Most likely, I think just China is waiting for how negotiations are going to play out with the States. So the States clearly does know that they need China, and this is why they are doing those kind of continuation of pauses rather than just enforcing that flat rate across the board as what they have been doing, or kind of sporadic ones. So I think in general, that's kind of a good thing. Shows that China is very much in need and desirable. But then again, I think a lot of logical investors already kind of knew that. But next meeting aside from that though is going to be in October, so just be aware of that. One big thing that is going to really move the market though is companies unveiling their earnings. A lot of speculative stocks that could be argued that they are overdone, so a little bit higher on the multiple scale, but when it comes down to their future guidance, that's going to be the big deal, because that's what started a lot of the fear. So you had UPS last week, Amazon, Apple, all really citing that their balance sheet is going to get hit quite dramatically because of tariffs. And then of course Friday's data didn't really help all that much. So I think in general, if a lot of these companies start citing the same thing, saying, hey, these tariffs are really going to impact our future growth, blah, 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 then that is going to really spark a lot of fear. Currently, there is some fear, and I think in general, you can always look at the crypto market as a good example of people's appetite for risk. So as far as right now, you're seeing a lot of the main ones pull back a little bit over the last 24 hours. So that might be an indication of what might be coming and rolling over into the equity market come Monday. So just be aware of that. As far as specific to NIO, there isn't really anything planned for this upcoming week. They have the weekly registration numbers coming out on Tuesday. Only thing that kind of came out that I feel is worthwhile to bring up that I haven't brought up in a previous video was this. So it looks like Norway did register the first Firefly. And I think Firefly, based on the price point, size, and everything, it's going to be a pretty big success for Europe. But of course, I think Norway, being the EV capital of Europe, it registered the first one. So I think that's a pretty good thing. Let me know your viewpoint on that in the comments below. Going into this upcoming week as well, specific to NIO, I do anticipate a couple new analyst ratings to come out, whether that be because of the L90 or possibly their monthly numbers that they did kind of put out. You kind of had both things at the same time, but there was one that was posted on Friday that buy $5.50, and that was a upgrade from 𝗪𝗧𝗧. So let me know your viewpoint on that in the comments below. But going into this upcoming week, I do anticipate shorts to be fairly active as per usual. So 11.6% of the free float is being shorted. That's where we're going into this upcoming week with. That works out to be 178.91 million shares overall are being shorted. DTC is still 4.08 days. So it could be argued that shorts are overextended. I know a lot of people already kind of generally knew that, but again, if NIO does continue its good momentum, then yeah, you might see shorts continue to return. But when it comes to the bulls, based on the options, you see a consensus for it to be roughly around that 550 going into or by the end of this week, upcoming week. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub 450. So with us right now at $5, kind of level ground as far as that goes. With the open interest and NIO closing above $5 on Friday, that is a huge deal, because that does mean that the 58,000 at the 5, 22,000 at the 450, 7,000 at 4, 5,000 at the 350 is all in the money. And from what I can see, there was no abnormal transactions occurring on the dark pool. after hours on Friday. So it is fair to assume that market makers did not cover any shares yet. So that does mean that you might see a nice push higher come Monday, as market makers will have to cover that. They don't have a lot of volatile stocks such as NIO in their inventory, so they have to go to the open market to get that. So at the end of the day, that's kind of a good thing. Might really set the good trajectory for NIO to continue to move on higher. But going into this upcoming week with it at 501, it is trading between this R1 and the pivot. 449 is going to be a strong support, and then 519 is going to be the next strong target / resistance. That wasn't tested on Friday, so just kind of keep that in mind. Aside from that, though, you also do have the 562 and then 632 as next strong kind of resistance points. I know a lot of individuals over the weekend, from what I can see on some posts, literally think that $10 it's coming this upcoming week. So I think optimism is just through the roof. So that'd be honestly pretty kick-ass if somehow, I don't know how, but if somehow NIO is able to get to $10, that would be absolutely epic. But aside from all that fun stuff though, on the actual chart itself, things are looking pretty a-okay. More specifically, I guess, on the 30th and on August the 1st. That's where things started to look a little bit sketchy, that NIO was going to really consolidate down. But luckily enough, institutions did really push it higher. So going into this upcoming week, it is above the ALMA and above all the key moving averages that generally I like to look at. So 200 is sitting at 429. You have the super trend at 425, 50 at the 392, and then the 100-day moving average at 398. Because of the recent pull lower that did happen, you have stochastic RSI somewhat neutral, arguably a little bit oversold, so that could really stand to benefit it going into this upcoming week. So by market makers covering all those shares, that might set the trajectory for it to really push on higher. So let me know your viewpoint on NIO. Where do you realistically see things going by the end of this week? Do you think it is going to be getting to kind of that mid $5, $6 range? Or do you think that we are going to consolidate because of fear? Because going back over here, a lot of these companies, like I said, have a fairly high multiple. Wall Street, they've been wrong on a lot of these stocks, such as AMD, Palantir, him and hers. So I can definitely bet that a lot of analysts are waiting for those companies to flop on their earnings, whether it be their actual key metrics or their future guidance, and then they will shout, "Hey, I told you so. This stock is garbage, blah, blah, blah." That might cause a little bit more of a ripple effect across a lot of these other speculative stocks. So let me know your general thoughts on kind of how this week will play out. Hopefully everyone's having an amazing weekend. And then one final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.